barely see each other.
Anderson slide down there. She takes good care of it.
She does. If I screw anything up, it's all my fault.
Well, of course,
She's
we knew
taking
that.
care
I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Governors back to order. And thank you for a productive morning. We will move on to item 4.2 on our agenda. It's a presentation on the California High-Speed Rail Authority. And I think we have a guest, and will be introduced by our Vice Chancellor, Van Ton Quinlivan.
Thank you, Member Baum. Thank you, Chancellor, and members of the board. So in response to the board's request for a briefing regarding the high-speed rail effort in California to build out and operate the first high-speed rail system in the nation, we have invited the CEO of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, Jeff Morales, to come and speak with you and share with you the project, its objectives, timelines, and progress to date.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for the chance to be here. Appreciate it. And look forward to a very effective partnership with this group as we go forward, because there's some real needs, I think, for us, and good opportunities for collaboration. What I'd like to do is run through briefly a little bit of the background about where we are with the program, what it's about, what we're trying to achieve, because one of the things I find regularly is, although there are a lot of very strongly held opinions about this program, there's also a lot of misunderstanding about what it is and where we are and what we're doing. And so I think I always find it helpful to go through it. And I think the first thing is, we always say it's really not about the trains per se. This is an investment in California as a state, as an economy, and about the future of this state, and really follows on previous generational kind of investments and decisions that help shape the state. And you think about, certainly educationally, what the master plan for higher education meant to this state, and what it's done to the economy. Arguably, Silicon Valley wouldn't exist without the universities in California, and that, at its time, was an extremely controversial measure passed by a single vote in the legislature when it went through, much like our program did. But this is that kind of an investment. And one of the very important things that high-speed rail will do in the state is, for the first time, we'll connect all of the state's population centers. Today we have very strong, vibrant economies in Southern California and the Bay Area. The Central Valley's been left behind, and that's 6 million people in the Central Valley, and it's one of the reasons we see chronic unemployment rates, air quality issues, all the challenges that the Central Valley has is partly because it's disconnected from the rest of the state and hasn't shared in what's happened in the rest of the state. By law, by design, our program will tie the Central Valley together with the two major metropolitan areas on either end of the state, and help really move that region and the whole state forward. When you look at the underlying issues here in the state, I think you'll see development of high-speed rail is really not, frankly, an alternative. It's something we have to do. When you look at the growing population, continuing to move forward on that, the state of the existing transportation systems. Everybody knows about traffic congestion. People aren't necessarily as focused on airport congestion, which is just as bad in the state. LA to San Francisco is actually the busiest short-haul air market in the country. A lot of people don't realize that. And that uses up a tremendous amount of airport capacity. San Francisco Airport, in fact, refers to high-speed rail as its third runway, because they know they'll never be able to build another runway, and yet they need to, their goal is to get a lot of that short-haul traffic off of their runway so they can be more efficient in moving people longer distances, whether it's across the ocean, across the country, wherever it may be. We also, as a state, obviously have very aggressive goals in terms of air quality and greenhouse gas reduction, fighting climate change. High-speed rail, 100% electric, will be 100% powered by renewable energy sources, becomes an important part of what will be a new version of the state's transportation network, moving increasingly toward a greener form, electric transportation. And people always want to know about the cost and look at the price tag. And yes, it's expensive, but The alternatives are even more expensive. And again, this is not a question of whether we do high-speed rail or nothing. If we don't do high-speed rail, we'll be investing in roads and airports, putting aside the question of whether that's doable from a social perspective, whether we can get through the environmental reviews, all those other things. The cost of doing those and providing the same capacity to move people around this state is actually 2 to 3 times higher than building the high-speed rail system. Just a quick sense of, so this is what the system is designed to be, and this is based on Proposition 1A, Phase 1, connecting San Francisco to Los Angeles and Anaheim, long-term connecting up here to Sacramento and down to San Diego. We're also working with interest to look at a connection to Las Vegas, and there was some activity in the last week about that with China, Chinese consortium, announcing its plans to invest in that line. That line would ultimately connect into our system, creating the first interstate high-speed system in the U.S. And what this will mean, again, it's not just about the train. It's really about what it's going to do for our growing cities. And think about what it'll mean, today to get from Fresno. Anybody here from Fresno? Okay, you've been nodding a lot, so I figured, yeah, you must say, that's a half-day adventure to get from Fresno to the Bay Area. And basically you have to drive. It's actually a lot longer to take the train today. Think about what it'll mean to Fresno to be 35 to 40 minutes away from Silicon Valley. I mean, that's a game changer in terms of tying together communities, tying together economies. We'll see that all over the state, within the Central Valley, and tying the lower end of the Central Valley to Los Angeles in a way it's not today. Just as an example, Palmdale today in northern Los Angeles County is about a 2-hour train ride from Los Angeles Union Station. Under our system, it'll be about 15 minutes. Again, just an absolute game changer now in terms of tying those communities together, tying the economies together. It's also an important tool for helping growing cities grow more sustainably. Not just by itself, it has to be coupled with other things, better land use, things like that. It's one of the reasons Fresno is such a strong proponent, and Mayor Ashley Swearingen is such a huge proponent of it. They've developed a new master plan which focuses development, more denser, more sustainable development. Fresno has, over the last few decades, consumed over 50,000 acres of prime farmland in growth as it's grown out. That's not a sustainable pattern on a lot of levels, and so we're working closely with the city of Fresno. We're also working very closely with Bakersfield, with all the other cities where we'll have stations, to jointly plan how those stations work effectively with their local plans to create stronger, more vibrant cities as we go forward in the state. Jobs, a big component in the short term. Construction jobs, infrastructure investments, typically have huge job-creating components to them in the construction and in all the related activities. We're seeing that already with the early construction we're doing in the Valley. We have 2 large design-build contracts in place now, totaling over $2 billion. We've got over 200 California small businesses under contract and working on the project. That's having ripple effects already throughout, primarily in the Valley and in and around Fresno. But that effect is going to be felt all over the state as the program continues. Long term, the connectivity, creating the links between the regions and within the state is going to have a big impact in terms of just overall strengthening of the economy, creating new jobs, creating new types of jobs, in part to support a high-speed rail industry and everything that will mean. One of the benefits of being first in the country is we will be home to that industry as it grows in the rest of the country. And you see, and that's happening all over. The Bay Area Council in the San Francisco Bay Area talks about creating almost 10,000 jobs. Those are not the construction jobs. Those are the permanent jobs that they project will be added to the economy by strengthening and connecting with other regions. Jobs come in many different areas, and this is one area we certainly want to talk about, ways we can work with the community colleges to help prepare people for the jobs. It's everything from the front-end planning of work, environmental work, all the construction activities, ultimately for operations, maintenance of the system, all those things. those will all be private sector jobs. The way our business model is set up, these will not be state employees. We will be doing everything under contract with private operators under long-term agreements. So what we're talking about are creating good jobs in the private sector going forward, and we're going to need help to make sure that we have the people there to fill those positions. Lastly, just we're reaching out and talking to anchor institutions. Those are the institutions like colleges, healthcare facilities, who form the foundations of cities. And what this shows is, if you can make any sense of it, is that basically along our alignment we've got anchor institutions all over, and we want to create the partnerships with community colleges, with others to make sure that the benefit is realized in the cities where we have stations, where we're connecting, that people can be trained and can perform the jobs that we'll be creating through by bringing the system online, and that we see the kind of benefit accrue to California that is not just from the mobility and the transportation components, but the economic development aspects of the system. So that's my canned presentation. I was told to be quick, so I tried to be, but I'd be happy to take any questions, comments, or expand on anything that you would like.
Thank you very much for that timely presentation. And we'll open it up to the board for questions. I see Member Shaw had her hand up.
Yeah, you said there were 10,000 permanent. How many construction jobs are associated with it?
There's a standard multiplier used with infrastructure that for every $1 billion of investment, about 20,000 job years are created. And so when you look at the multiples of billions that we're going to be spending, that's a lot of jobs. But that's everything from about a third of those are the direct construction
How
jobs.
many is, you have to do the math for me. How many?
Yeah. Well, so that would be roughly, 7,000 or so
7,000
construction jobs for every $1 billion.
And what's the total cost of the project?
Right. Our official estimate is 67 billion. That number is actually, the good news is that number is going to come down, but it's a big number.
You operate under a project labor agreement and local hire and all that?
Yes, we do. We have a project labor agreement in place for the entire project. We have within that, as you know, because we have federal funds, we can't do local preference specifically, but we found ways to work around that by using a targeted worker program that's focused on hiring people from distressed zip codes with high unemployment
that's
rates
good, the
and
zip
things
codes.
like that. So we're actually seeing very good early results of that, where people are being hired where we want them to be hired, which is, and again, particularly starting in the Central Valley because of the high unemployment rates. It's 14-15% overall, but in the construction trades, it's 20, 30, 40% in some areas of unemployment. So these are jobs that are really important in those areas, and we're working very hard to make sure that that's where the jobs are generated.
And what is your biggest challenge?
In some respects, I think the biggest challenge is the scale of a program like this, which brings with it then the time frame for getting it implemented. A price tag. You put a big number out like that, and it scares people.
How much do you have now?
We have
67 billion. How many billions do you have
67 is the total price in inflated dollars out
Right.
through 2029. We have, in round numbers, $3 billion in federal funds. We have $8 billion in state bond funds, and we now have 25% of the cap and trade revenues annually that are generated. So that's last year was $500 million. This year it's projected to be higher than that, but that's an annual funding stream, which now we can go out, and the intent is to be able to use that to finance and to enter into agreements with the private sector. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Malumed.
I'll introduce myself. I haven't met you before. My husband is Alan Lowenthal.
Oh.
So nice to meet you, and thank you for your presentation. I'm a family medicine physician, and you mentioned something about healthcare facilities. I wasn't quite sure what you meant when you mentioned that. Are you trying to position your stations close to there, or you're worried about injuries? I wasn't sure.
Well, we do worry about injuries, but no, it's really more about working with institutions like healthcare institutions, educational, to tie development around the downtown areas and focus where development is, make it easier for people to get to and from the stations, whether it's for commuting purposes, whether it's, for whatever reason, but also to recognize that by tying together the communities, there can also be the opportunity to open up some cities to people who might not be there otherwise and create connections between them. So it's a strategic relationship we're looking to form of how can we help those institutions achieve their goals and help support the cities in which they reside.
Okay, and then on this last page, anchor institutions, there are these small little gray lines. I live in Long Beach, like to Norwalk, Santa Fe. What is that to represent?
Yeah, that's between Los Angeles and Anaheim. That's the alignment there, and we'll have. We're looking at potentially stations at one of those locations, along with Fullerton, in between Los Angeles and Anaheim, and Norwalk tying in with the Green Line there.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Conway.
Hello.
So I saw, I don't think I read it, I think I saw it on TV or whatever, with interest, that China may be partnering with someone for a high-speed rail from LA to Las Vegas rather quickly. Does that impact your program one way or the other? Is that, I mean, does it take workforce away? Going to go down there and do it, or is it speed up your process or slow down your process?
We're in the process of figuring that out. What I will say, and I put this map up, there's an existing entity called Express West, which has, it's a private firm that has the environmental approvals and a federal license basically to run high-speed rail service. Currently its authority is between Las Vegas and Victorville. Their model was to run trains between those 2 points and pick people up, have them drive to Victorville. That's basically where the 15, everything comes together. We're working with them to tie our two systems together. There's a huge market between the LA Basin and Las Vegas. Something like 17 million trips a year taken out of the LA Basin to Las Vegas, 15 million by car. So, and if you've ever done that drive, you would wonder why in the heck anybody would ever do it. But you can also see that if a train were available to do that and get you there in less than 2 hours, why would anyone drive? And that has huge implications for traffic, for air quality, everything else. So we've been working with this entity to make sure that our systems can tie together, that they're interoperable. The long-term goal would be able to, again, fully run it as a network. So someone could come from Fresno and go, or Bakersfield and go to Las Vegas, or from Las Vegas and go to Anaheim, and tie those two together. The announcement last week was a Chinese consortium of 6 companies has signed an agreement to partner with them to help advance that project. All the details aren't out yet, but I think it's generally a very positive move, and one that we're following and working to see how it affects our plans.
Vice President Estolano.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Morales, for your presentation. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships you may already be engaging in with our community colleges or some of our workforce development partners.
Sure. We and this gets an important point because we have a real need, obviously, for the workers. We don't have the capability, or frankly, it's not our place to train them and develop them. So we have partnerships with the building trades, who obviously conduct and develop employees, and then with the local workforce investment boards. Most actively, because it's where the work has started, with Fresno. Is where we're most actively engaged, but we're also working throughout the valley and expanding that statewide. There have been down in the Bakersfield area and then in Fresno, I think it combined something like 5 or 6 pre-apprenticeship courses that have been put together already and had people go through, and we're seeing a very high placement rate already out of that, which is great. We've got early partnerships with some of your members in Merced and Modesto, I think, right, and in particular, and also Fresno City College. But it's something, again, we'd like to expand on and see where those opportunities are. One of the things we're going to be doing over the next few months is developing a clearer sense of what kind of jobs we're going to need, and when I say we, again, for the purpose of delivering and operating the system, and a time frame for when those jobs will start to be needed, so that then we can work with you and others to help then create the pipeline to fill those positions.
And Vice Chancellor Von Ton Quinlivan, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I'm imagining that this list of potential jobs is probably feeding into the regional partnerships that we're doing, regional consortium that we're working with. But any thoughts on how we might integrate our programs?
Yes. So, actually, a while ago, we actually went in partnership with Tim Rainey over at the California WIB. We sponsored an on-the-ground workshop where we brought together our community colleges with the labor community, because the hiring is through the project labor agreements. So there needed to be an understanding between the two communities on how students could progress into that pipeline. And so that fostered a lot of the on-the-ground relationship. And so Lisa from the High Speed Rail in the back, we're continuing to talk to monitor sort of the right timing for the next phase of your needs. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I just, speaking from wearing one hat, though, too, I do think the state needs to explore multiple mobility options for the needs of the future. And too often, we're still stuck into, like, how we're going to expand road, build highways and tunnels and things like that, where we really need to expand for our students and our children and others, that to get around without having to use a vehicle is going to be an important path forward. I know that you've got a long road ahead before this goes forward, but this briefing is very helpful, and I hope that we have a chance to come back and hear more about the authority and then how we're building that into the workforce needs for our students, and how we can contribute to improving mobility across the state of California.
Well, thank you. And I just, it's an important point that I think when you look at an investment like this, you have to think about it as a future, and California is going to look a lot different in 10, 20 years than it does today in terms of transportation. You look at the massive investments being made in Los Angeles in transit, and it's happening all over the state. And, the majority of, age-wise at least, the students at colleges, there is a very real marked shift in how they want to travel. And, people aren't getting driver's licenses the minute that they turn 16, the way we all did, and they don't, car ownership is lower, and people use transit, and that's who we're building this system for. Really, it's for the future, and it's and so we really look forward to a partnership, and we see college students. It's really interesting at our public meetings and things. There's a marked shift in you see it very clearly in the age of people. Everyone under 30 is like, get the thing built, I want to ride it. You got people on the other end of the spectrum who are more skeptical. And we've had students, including at a few of the community colleges, who have started chapters called I Will Ride, who are out promoting, and they show up at public meetings and do things to promote that this is something that they think is important for their future.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming and briefing us on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item 4.3. We have a briefing on the work of our task force on accreditation. I will let the task force members come to the dais, and I will invite the Chancellor to open the conversation on this topic.
Thank you, President Baum, members of the board. It is a pleasure to ask the task force. I'll give them just a second to find their seat. But by way of introduction of this activity, this actually goes back quite some time to my predecessor, Jack Scott, who actually formed at the request of the Consultation Council the first accreditation task force. And since that time, there's been not only that task force, but a number of other activities that have taken place over the last several years. And then, as the board will recall, last year, the state auditor did a audit report on the Accrediting Commission, and it's no secret the auditor has no purview over the Accrediting Commission, so they made those audit findings to the Chancellor's office. And so it was at that time that we reactivated the Accreditation Task Force, and they have recently completed their work, and the board has received that report previously, and it's in this document again today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chancellor Pam Walker, who chaired this group, and she and her colleagues will give you a briefing.
President Baum, Vice President Estolano, Chancellor Harris, Board. In the last several years, there have been a variety of reports, resolutions, and recommendations that have been issued by individual organizations and through joint efforts regarding accreditation for the California community colleges. In each of these were expressed concerns about the current accreditation process, including that June 2014 state audit report titled California Community College Accreditation. Colleges are treated inconsistently and opportunities exist for improvement in the accreditation process. That report suggested several recommendations to the Chancellor's office, including monitor community colleges for issues that may jeopardize accreditation, remove language from its regulations naming ACCJC as the sole accreditor of the California Community colleges, encourage the flexibility in choosing an accreditor, and identify other regional accreditors who are able to accredit California community colleges or who would be willing to change their scope to do so. And third, prompt the Chancellor's office to engage the Commission on behalf of the 112 colleges, now 113. The report, the report of the state auditor charged the Chancellor to be more involved by protecting the state's interest in accreditation. In response to the accreditation recommendations, that report's recommendations, one, the colleges be monitored. The Chancellor has developed a new division of institutional effectiveness that oversees the development and operation of a comprehensive technical assistance program by developing a framework of indicators focused on accreditation and other issues. In response to the accreditation regarding the accrediting body, that recommendation, at the March 2015 Board of Governors meeting, the BOG approved the accreditation, that accreditation shall be determined only by an accrediting agency recommended by the Chancellor and approved by the Board of Governors, removing the language naming ACCJC. I think it's important to know the strands of issues that this task force dealt with, including currently accreditation is focused on compliance rather than improvement, inconsistent and equitable treatment, unclear expectations, lack of transparency and public participation, lack of alignment with other regional accreditors, inadequate and poor quality training, lack of collaboration and lack of respect for colleges and key stakeholder groups, overstepping of rules and responsibilities, and lack of evaluation or a safe mechanism for feedback to the Commission. To frame our work, it is important to know that consistent calls for reform of the accrediting process and change on the part of the Accrediting Commission have been raised by the Chancellor's Office, administrative organizations, faculty groups, classified staff, and voices outside the college system. They've all encouraged engagement. So the charge of the 2015 task force was to evaluate the current state of accreditation for community colleges in California and to recommend to the Chancellor and the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges possible courses of action that will best serve students in our 113 college system. However, in approaching this charge, the task force determined that rather than focus primarily on all the past difficulties, that this report should be aspirational and should identify the qualities that would constitute an ideal accrediting agent. And so, engagement, prompt engagement. So the members of the task force represent various constituent groups within the community college system, including administration, faculty, trustees, accreditation liaison officers, and the chancellor's office. We have some task force members in the audience today. Two of our group are Stan Carzoza, the superintendent president of College of Sequoias, and Joanne Waddell, the president of LA College Faculty Guild, AFT 1521, besides my colleagues here. So now, allow me to introduce first Rich Hansen from the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, who will focus on the history and background of accreditation and these many task forces. Steve Bloom, a trustee from the Ventura District, who will concentrate on the importance and commitment of peer review. David Morris, president of the Academic Senate for the California Community Colleges, who will speak to the ideal attributes of an accrediting body. And Dr. Cindy Miles, Chancellor of the Grossmont-Cuyamaca District, speaking to the task force findings and recommendations and looking forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Hansen. I spoke earlier this morning as well. I represent often two different groups, the independent unions in the state, but also FAC, Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, and it was in that regard that I was on all three task forces. I teach math at De Anza College, but I'm really an historian at heart, so I'm happy to give you a little history. It's really a history of an evolution from one task force to the other, so I'll start with really the beginning, a little before, well, quite a bit before there were any task forces. The commission changed in a big way the accrediting standards back in the early 2000s, moving to a data-based approach where data was supposed to drive decision-making. A component of that was SLOs, student learning outcomes, and that was a controversial topic among faculty because faculty felt that this was redundant, that we already do something called grading, that is an assessment of our students, and many were arguing, and a lot from my triple CI group, that it was not a good use of their time. In 2009, focused on really that issue, that group wrote up a resolution, basically a vote of no confidence in the accrediting commission. And we presented it at Consultation Council. Out of that came, and there were already problems because we were already suffering from a rather high level of sanctions, and out of that came the first task force. And this was at a time when my own local group from College of the Redwoods was, I think, the only one at that point on show cause. And it was about being behind in SLOs. And I know that faculty worked very hard to get back on track and did successfully get off show cause on that. But in the 2009 task force, we really had our kind of day of reckoning in 2010 when the chancellor was going to present our 7 recommendations. We did a survey and found that there were problems that we wanted to address, and the idea was to make some recommendations about how to cooperate better. And at that point, the chancellor was refused the opportunity to speak to the commission. We weren't on the agenda for the open session, and it looked like the door was closed. It turned out, through some behind-the-scenes activity, that the chancellor did get to have 5 minutes with the commission in closed session. Essentially, the argument was that we represented really the chancellor's office and the system, and as such, we were a third party. The argument was that the colleges themselves were the only real voices to be heard. But one of the things our survey showed was that the colleges themselves were somewhat intimidated because of this high rate of sanctions, and it's public. So it's really a difficult thing to overcome. Moving on to, no, that's okay, so that's it. So moving on to the next one, the second task force was formed in 2013. And at this point, Redwoods was back on sanction, show cause sanction. So was Cuesta, and also the City College of San Francisco was on show cause. That had just really gotten started. At the time, like I said, the faculty were originally concerned about SLOs but there was a FAC workshop on this topic at that time, and from all of the faculty from these colleges, the message was it was really more about governance than SLOs. There were issues about trustees, there were issues about organization of the college. It was not what we expected at all. In fact, it was a bit more weighty, in fact. So that was the background then for that second group, a shift a bit more toward governance. And that second group was divided. Consensus around trying to accommodate and find a way to work together was not so completely solidly held. So as you probably know, a report out of that group just never was published. The other thing that was happening at that point, too, was there was an acceleration of the City College situation. And if you were following it in the papers, you know what I was talking about, am talking about. So then we come to our third task force, and I am just about at the end of my story. And the thing about this task force, and it included a few people from the second one, including me, there was a pretty strong, I would say, very strong unanimity from the start. The feeling had changed from trying to accommodate, trying to get along, and frustration at this point, and a feeling of the need to move on, look to the future of the system, and look for the proper accreditor. And of course, the driving force was that JLAC audit, which ironically enough turned the whole issue back to the Chancellor's office, that so-called third party, to say, Chancellor's office, here are recommendations. Pam just told you about them. And the Chancellor's office was put front and center to really try to cope with this problem. And so here we are today. Thank you.
It says here good morning, but I guess it's afternoon now. As Dr. Walker said, I'm a trustee from Ventura. I'm also on the Triple CT, the league's trustee board for the state, who I'm happy to announce has endorsed this report. So what is in the best interest of students? Thousands of educators who serve our state and its students go to work each day with this in mind. The 2015 State Chancellor's Accreditation Task Force was guided by the same question in formulating its conclusions and recommendations regarding the accreditation process for the California community colleges. As you know, leadership is not always easy, and this task force was presented with a difficult task. After much debate and discussion, the task force determined the best interest of our students is not being served by the current system of accreditation. The process should consist of transparent, collegial, peer review that seeks to improve and enhance our colleges, not one based on compliance and punitive measures. We understand and appreciate the role of accreditation organization is not easy. However, we must resist the temptation of playing whack-a-mole with our community colleges and its students. We should reject the silly notions that discrediting placing public schools like Aspen Award-winning Santa Barbara City College on sanctions or closing them improves conditions for students. Accreditation should be not be something that is feared and viewed with trepidation. Accreditation should be a process in which educators help each other progress. One that is looked forward to with anticipation because esteemed peers will be arriving to acknowledge the school's strengths and help them to improve and better serve students. Substantial and bold changes are needed to ensure California's 2.3 million community college students are served to the best of our ability. Our students are depending on us. I am confident meaningful and real changes can and will occur.
Want to stress first that there was on this task force a very strong faculty voice, both in terms of having several representatives and also of engagement with the conversation. And I stress that because I think that it's a very important thing in the sense that the things that accreditation should be about serving our students, about our instructional programs, about our services, depend upon the faculty's cooperation and the faculty's involvement. And the faculty groups, not only the Academic Senate, but the other faculty groups have been raising concerns about accreditation for several years. And so I think our very strong participation in this task force was something that was very important and very much appreciated. The structure of the report, as we got together and talked about what we wanted to do, it starts with some background and some context in order to explain how we came to where we are. But the majority of the report talks about what we would like to see, and that's very important. As Vice Chancellor Walker said, we decided that we did not want to write a report rehashing past complaints, that we didn't want to write a report that focused on the number of institutions on sanction, although those things are certainly mentioned, but they are not the focus of the report. The focus is, this is what we want to see, this is what we think accreditation should be, and this is the ideal that we are looking for. And so in constructing that ideal, we did look at previous reports, we did look at some of the things that had been raised, but really the questions that we were asking are, if we could construct the accreditor that we would want to see, that would serve our system as it is now, with the various things that we are facing, with the changes that we are experiencing in terms of our mission and in other ways, what would that accreditor look like? And so you have within the report 9 ideal attributes that we identified, that these are the things that we would like to see, these are the things that we would expect and feel that we need from an accreditor for our system. And I won't go through and try to read the 9 attributes for you, because hopefully you've read the report and you've seen them, but you see in looking at them that, again, they're not focused on complaints or on the past, but rather on looking for an accreditor that would be transparent, that would promote academic and instructional excellence and improvement, and that would promote and share in mutual respect, both among the various constituencies within the system, but also respect between the accreditor and the system. Those are really the things that we were looking for, and what a lot of those ideal attributes boil down to. I want to note that first off, I want to commend Vice Chancellor Walker, as well as Vice Chancellors Tenna and Paul Feist, who were involved with the task force, but who, to my perception at least, in no way tried to direct or control the task force. These recommendations, this report came very much out of the constituent voices. Again, we were given assistance and support by the Chancellor's office, but were in no way controlled. This comes from the field and from the representatives of the different constituent groups. And as Rich noted, with unanimity, I did not hear anyone disagree on this task force. Previous groups may have been divided, may have had some holdups because they weren't all on the same page. This task force, I heard no sense of anyone disagreeing with the findings at all. At most, there were a couple of people that worried about what the consequences would be. And Rich also mentioned that in the past, the sense of intimidation from anyone who perhaps spoke up. But no one was disagreeing. And I would say, as perhaps an editorial comment, that the fact of that fear of what will happen if we criticize our accreditor, is as good an example as I can give you of the problem and of why we are where we are at this point. So I think that this is something that has come from all of us, that we are very much in unanimity on, and came to not only in terms of the structure of the report of what we wanted to see, but also to agreement on the recommendations, which Chancellor Miles will discuss. So.
Thank you so much. May I just thank you first of all for being such a great board and giving us our independent warrant authority for Grossmont Cuyamaca, so we can do our own. Thank you very much. I haven't been to a Board of Governors meeting in more than a year, and I'm really enjoying the new faces and the new perspectives. It's quite heartwarming to see the kinds of questions that are being asked, the engagement. So thank you. I come to this, I want to give you just a little background about myself, because I think the contextual piece makes sense, someone like our historian. I come with 25 years of higher education experience, 16 years as a senior administrator, and most pertinent to this, I'm an outsider. I'm in my 7th year in California as chancellor of the Grossmont Cuyamaca district. So I have worked in 5 states under 3 different accrediting commissions. So I have engaged on teams, been part of receiving, gone through reaffirmation, and in fact, in my job as president of the Hialeah campus, I was a founding president in Miami-Dade. I had the opportunity to get to move us through the substantive change process to get the authority for this to be a standalone campus in the Miami-Dade district under the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. So I have a perspective about accreditation that may be a little bit different from my colleagues. Like Rich, I was on task forces 2.0 and 3.0. I didn't have 1.0 experience, and so I drew this short straw. I mean, I was invited to be on these task forces because of my role on the CEO board. At the time that Chancellor Harris convened the second task force, I was president of the CEO board. So it was in that capacity that I joined the task force as the representatives for CEOs. I'd like to give a shout out to our current CEO board president, Chancellor Ron Galatolo, who is in the audience, from Chancellor San Mateo. And he's leading the conversation among the CEOs at this time, where we are going through our consultative process. Our CEO board comprises representatives from various regions. This is the way we run things in this state. So the voices are being gathered from various regions. I can say that right now, my region, Region 10, the San Diego and Imperial County Community College Association, has already given our support uniformly. 10 colleges have signed on, and the letter has been given to Chancellor Harris. I would also add, before I go into the recommendations and the findings and recommendations in a little bit more detail, just a thank you for receiving this tome. And if you haven't had the chance to dig through it, it's 268 pages, but the actual report is only 9 pages long, so you can do that. But what's important is all these other reports that are mentioned here, the background data, the report that Rich talked about, the very first recommendations from Task Force 1.0, when Chancellor Jack Scott is in here for you to look at. The RP report, the recommendations that the CEO board had made. And then if you take the time to look at the crosswalk that points that they're on pages 12 through 19, it's in tabular form. You can see the consistency of the findings, the recommendations that were made year after year after year from multiple constituent groups, which is what I think captured our attention and led us more quickly in this incarnation of this task force to concerted recommendations than we had been before. Rich is right. On the second task force, we were not in total agreement. I was on the side of the table arguing hard and boldly for conciliation and for cooperation with our accreditor. Others were not on the same side. And we had crafted a set of recommendations for our colleges, a set of recommendations for the commission, and a set of recommendations that we would do collectively. Those are still all very good recommendations. But I think what happened as this very diverse group of people came together in this over the last several months, that we did not come lightly to our conclusions, and we began to realize that what we shared is a concerted devotion to our students and to the difference that accreditation makes for our students, for our institutions, of course. You know, we're all fierce protectors of, and our constituents. You know, we represent different constituent groups and others who are not at this table. But we have a very collective concern for students and the difference that what's happening with accreditation in our region is making. So when we went quickly through the past, looked at that crosswalk, you can look at all those. Vice Chancellor Walker went through the major findings, those 9 themes that we found universally. We reflected on the high level of sanctions. By the way, of the 37 colleges out of the 113 that have not been on sanction in the last 10 years, my 2 are among those 37 that have not received sanction. I have no axe to grind in this discussion. And I think that's an important thing to say. I may be calling for help later. We don't. I've had friends say, "What are you thinking?" But I wholeheartedly support these recommendations with nothing personal in it from myself or the institutions that I represent. Most important, we moved our discussions very quickly to what we need in an accreditor, as my colleague David Morse said. And I need to also pause and say that the sharp, clear, easy-to-read language is a result of his great writing skills. So, David, we want to thank you. Honestly, he's a great author, and he would bring together. I think you mentioned that the vice chancellors, the staff members, didn't try to influence us. They couldn't have if they tried. This is a fierce group of colleagues, strong-minded people with lots of experience. So he worked through these various voices and found a collective voice that I think is clean and clear and decisive. Again, as I said, looked at the changing needs of our students. I couldn't help but think as I listened to all the conversations today, themes across the board, whether we're talking about the changes in leadership that Josh Weiner was saying, when he says we need to change from, we tend to select leaders who are risk averse. We tend to select leaders who will be, financially secure, keep us safe. The world is changing. The forces on our community colleges, and more importantly, the needs of our students are changing dramatically, as are our workforce needs. Dramatic changes, even the transportation talks about the massive changes that are going on impacting our system. So what we wanted was to look at what will help us meet our current needs, those for our students, and to have the system be as strong as it can be, and for the future of our system. This is what took us to the findings that you've heard prefaced, where we said, overall, universally, we found that the practices, the track record, and the structure of the other 5 regional accrediting areas that integrate all the institutions of higher ed under one accrediting umbrella are superior and preferable to the kind of structure that we have right now. So we found, and you see these outlined on page 8 if you're following along, that the current structure of accreditation that we have in our region no longer serves our current, but more importantly, our future needs. We find that our current commission does not measure up to the expectations that were the attributes that we outlined in section 3 of the document that David went over. We also found collectively that the repeated requests and recommendations for change have yielded few significant improvements. Now, I will say, I do want to say, we know that efforts have been made. We know we've had, and I can just speak from the CEOs, we've had multiple meetings with members of the commission and staff, and we exchange information. We've done this every year that I've been in the system. We have seen changes. We have seen incremental changes. There's plans to have a statewide conference. The accrediting cycle was expanded to 7 years. We have seen a new set of standards come forward. But what we're saying is that this isn't enough, and we need a more systemic and transformational change to be able to do what we need to do. And we, in general, we say that our constituents that we're representing have lost confidence in our current structure. The recommendations that you find outlined on page 8 and 9 are very clear-cut. They're very bold, I will say. And we are asking, and we want to, I'll stop at this moment and just thank the Chancellor for receiving this, for holding, for having the courage to hold this task force. It wasn't something he wanted to do either. I can guarantee you the pressures mounted and he had to do this. But it took a great courage and leadership, so we thank you, Chancellor Harris, for convening the task force and give us this opportunity for receiving this and the recommendations that we're bringing to the board today. So our recommendation is that the Chancellor's office should investigate all available avenues for a new model for accreditation, including options such as, and we outlined 2, there may be others, a combined accrediting commission with community colleges joining WASC, Senior College and University Commission, in keeping with the prevalent models that we find in all the other regions of the country, and or look for another regional accreditor to serve our California community colleges. We recommend number 2, that this evaluation be done expeditiously. In fact, our bold request is that it be done by spring to bring a recommendation for action to this board. We got 1. And number 3, meanwhile, but to be very respectful, accreditation is something that we all value. I participated in accreditation my entire higher education career. The value of a peer review process where you do the very hard self-reflection and then have experienced peers come in and look with you to try to improve against a set of standards that we collectively engage in is very, very important. So we want to also recommend that we continue in whatever process is going forward to work in a cooperative and proactive manner with our current accreditor. I would end by saying this is not about the past. You know, it's not even about the present, although there are a lot of present implications for all of us. This is genuinely about taking a very forward look for the future of the California community colleges, the students that we serve, our communities. And I thank you for your time.
I want to extend my thanks to the task force for their hard work on this, especially now recalling that Richard Hansen served on 3 successive task forces. He's really earned his stripes on this one.
That's the shortest straw.
This is for this very, very, very powerful report. Member Malumet and I have been on the Board of Governors, and we started noticing an epidemic of sanction happening several years ago, and saying that something's out of whack here, and we need to take a look at it. Say, why is there this epidemic of sanctioning going on in our system, where we also have all these evaluation mechanisms, so that and it didn't match up with what we'd been hearing and evaluating with our own systems of evaluating the system. So this is very helpful. We have a lot of members of the public who would like to address the board on this topic, but then I'm going to ask the Chancellor also to say, where do we go from here now that we have these recommendations, and then how we can implement the recommendations with the Chancellor's office first. So do you want to address that first?
Let me address that. Thank you again, task force members, for your work and for your presentation today. What we anticipate is that this is really the beginning of what we expect to be a very robust conversation, and that we would come back to you in November with recommendations. And at that point, it would be recommendations for taking action to move forward to make a decision on the future of accreditation for the system, which we would expect to bring back to you in the form of a recommendation as the task force requested in March of next year. And at that point, we would hope to come to you with recommendations on exactly what direction the system should take in terms of accreditation. So 3 steps: this one for information, next month forward to you, or next meeting in November, forward to you with a recommendation on the next course of action, and then back to you in March of next year with a clear recommendation on a direction in which the system would move.
Thank you. So we will turn to public comment, and then we will have board member discussion. And so we are going to observe a strict 3-minute time limit. You will hear a loud alarm go off at 3 minutes.
Change it from pretty chimes to something obnoxious.
No,
And then the hook comes out.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to call up 3 at a time, just for purposes of timeliness. If all 3 could come up, we have 3 microphones. That way folks can just kind of move in order. Sharon Vogel, Alvin Jaw, and Ellen D'Souza. And Ms. Vogel, go right ahead while the rest are coming up.
Sharon Vogel, a FAC president and also nursing faculty. And as a nurse, I do evaluate that peer and self evaluation time, and therefore I value the accreditation process. I'm very grateful for this team's hard work and the reflection. And in the future, as was stated at Consultation Council, it's going to take courage on many of the constituent groups to have that active discussion and reflection time and step up to support these task force recommendations. And I know at our next FAC board meeting, we'll be having that discussion and forwarding this for an action item. But our past positions have already reflected that we would support this in principle. FAC sponsored a bill this year, AB 404, which is now awaiting the governor's signature from Assemblyman Chu, that is not in conflict with these recommendations. In fact, it supports them. What it will allow, in our conversation, we visited Washington, D.C., and we also have had multiple conversations with the Department of Education about how could we give them feedback, no matter who our accrediting agency is, how could we provide them with feedback when they allow for it. And this bill would allow for a process by which we could give any accrediting agency who steps in to be our accreditor that feedback. And it would be anonymous and from multiple constituent groups. So I urge you to support AB 404 and urge the governor to sign it. Because the Department of Ed did state that many of the other states don't have this process, and they would like our feedback in an organized manner rather than random people just sending it in. They would love to have some organized feedback, and this would provide an organized method for which us to give to NSECI and the Department of Ed feedback regarding whoever is accrediting us. So I urge you to know that, and we know these next few months that it will be critical to look forward, and and FAC looks forward to providing our support and our conversation, and any work that we can do on behalf to help you, please let us know. We are excited about this process and can hardly wait to see where it goes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jaw.
I would like to summarize the Accreditation Task Force report in one word. The Commission is incorrigible. It is not, it's already had 8 years of misbehavior, and the time is now not just to have information and discussion, it's time to act. Okay, and what do I mean? The most critical thing is that third-party comments for in front of NSECI ends this Friday. And I think it's incumbent upon the board and the chancellor to submit a third-party comment telling them that the community colleges do not support ACCJC. This is incredibly important. It's time critical. And I really think you need to do it as the very first step.
Thank you very much. We have Alan D'Souza, followed by Jeff Freitas. Mr. Freitas, if you could come up, and Dr. Anita Greer. Go ahead, Mr. D'Souza.
Thank the board for initiating this task force report and considering it and looking at it very closely. As you examine the contents and the recommendations, I asked the governing board to very closely consider the conclusion and the recommendations. The task force found little evidence that ACCJC has the ability or willingness to improve its processes and performance, especially those governing transparency, collegiality, and consistency. The task force further urges that no delay be taken in following the recommendations of the task force and finding an alternative accreditor for the Community College of California without further delay. Right. So we ask this to be as soon as possible. I'm concerned about the 8 to 10 year timeline that has been projected and recently for how long this process could be taken. And I appreciate that the board's going to look at this in November and then again in March. But please proceed with expediency. There's significant impact on our community colleges. A culture of fear has been permeated throughout the state by the punitive nature of the ACCJC, which has applied inconsistent and unpredictable application of the standards that we are required to follow. This has affected our students who are uncertain whether their class credits will transfer, whether their programs will be allowed to continue, or whether it will be the piece of paper they receive will actually be worth anything when they graduate. This has also precipitated a huge drop in enrollment throughout the state, although there are other reasons for that too. But the fear of what accreditation has brought down on the colleges that are impacted has been dire. Beyond students, faculty have also been impacted, especially long-time faculty who, if their programs and cuts affect them and are forced to retirement, these are folks who may not have an alternative to enter the workforce again, and that's a serious consideration to be made. But it's not only the old or more tenured, faculty. They're also the newer faculty who are fearful whether this career choice that they've made is something they should continue with. In fact, just yesterday, I received a notice, a call from my colleague, fantastic, new energetic, involved colleague who has decided to move on to another institution because one consideration was his future under the accreditation rules at our college. And in fact, he said, in the classroom, ACCJC's arbitrary and non-transformational policies have sabotaged his work in the classroom.
Mr. D'Souza, your time has elapsed. Thank you. Jeff Freitas, followed by Dr. Anita Greer, and then Martin Hittleman.
Thank you. Thank you, President Baum, board members, and thank you, Chancellor Harris, for having this task force. I am Jeff Freitas, the Secretary-Treasurer of the CFT, that's the California Federation of Teachers, and I'm speaking on behalf of the members of CFT. We believe it is critical that the report's recommendations of replacing ACCJC be implemented as swiftly as possible, and we are ready to assist so that our state can move, as the report says, to a timely development of the robust accreditation structure that other regions enjoy and that California lacks. It is our firm belief that ACCJC does not respect the law and the educational rights of California residents. The Commission acts as if it is unaccountable to anyone and can no longer be trusted to serve as the accreditor of any California community college. 2 years ago, and we're passing around this letter that I'm summarizing, 2 years ago, the CFT, which represents a majority of community college faculty in California, filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, and we presented at the Nisiki hearing in D.C. We presented about ACCJC's failure to comply with multiple accreditation standards. We were compelled to take this extraordinary action by the agency's destructive actions, most notably in regard to San Francisco City College, but also significant destructive actions across the state, which you have seen in the task force. In part, as a result of our complaint, the U.S. Department of Education issued a letter detailing the ACCJC's lack of compliance with 15 accreditation standards required for continued recognition as an accreditor. Since then, the Superior Court, ruling that the agency broke 4 laws, is ill-considered decision to shutter City College of San Francisco, a report from California's Joint Legislative Audit Committee in June of 2014, a bipartisan legislative action seeking to bring greater transparency and accountability to ACCJC, and even this board, this governing board, has taken action to remove regulatory language that has originally given the ACCJC sole authority over accreditation of the state's community colleges. These actions represent a sea of change in public perception of the agency. The CFT's critique to Nisiki of 2 years ago has now become mainstream opinion. I'm trying to shortchange this. One important reason why the shift in public understanding at ACCJC took so long was fear of the ACCJC's sanctioning powers, and that was even mentioned by some of the task force members. And a well-deserved reputation for vindictiveness, which kept many college administrators and trustees silent. Republican State Senator Jim Nielsen, I have personal friends on both sides of the House, but CFT, the union, doesn't often work with Republicans. Just want to point that out. Provided a
Mr.
glimpse...
Freitas, your time has elapsed. I'm so sorry, since you were going to be nonpartisan.
I'm sorry, there was no warning that I had 30 seconds left.
I gave you a 30-second warning. I did. It's okay.
That you move swiftly
Thank
with
you.
the accreditation.
Appreciate that. Dr. Anita Greer, Martin Hellman, followed by Timothy Killikelly.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Anita Greer, former president of the board, City College of San Francisco, and a graduate of City College. In our struggle at City College of San Francisco to survive as a true community college that serves all the communities in our great and diverse city, I have been encouraged by individual messages of support, mass demonstrations, criticism of the ACCJC by the Department of Education, Superior Court Judge Carno's decision, the state bipartisan audit, various enlightenment legislative acts, and the recent report of the California Community College Chancellor Office Task Force on Accreditation. The two messages that encourage me and validate the wisdom and the humanity of our popular struggle at City College are the following. A short time after the ACCJC had imposed the show cause sanction on City College, I attended a meeting in the Bay Area of community college administrators, members of the boards of trustees, and after that, an African-American woman approached me and said, and I quote, "I'm glad the ACCJC is picking on San Francisco City College because you people know how to defend yourselves," end of quote. And on page 8 of the recent State Chancellor's Task Force report on the ACCJC are two statements that no one in this room can dismiss or rationalize. And I quote, "The structure of accreditation in this region no longer meets the current and anticipated needs of the California community colleges. The California Community College system and its member institutions have lost confidence in the ACCJC. It's my view and hope that Chancellor Harris and the Board of Governors have finally concluded that the ACCJC should no longer be recognized by the United States Department of Education as an authorized accrediting agency and will convey that position to the Department of Education before the deadline of September 25th, 2015.
30
and that
seconds.
in December that this year, Chancellor Harris will present in person at the State Chancellor's Task Force report on the ACCJC. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. Martin Himmelman, Timothy Killikelly, and then James McFadden.
My name is Martin Hiddleman. I went to community college, taught in the community colleges for almost 50 years. I've been on consultation council. I came to Board of Governors meetings for maybe 20 years. So I know something about the system. I started fighting against ACCJC many, many years ago. Compton College, when they lost their accreditation, I took personal responsibility for not fighting hard enough and getting enough people to fight what I thought was racism on the part of ACCJC and the kind of disrespect that we've seen now that everybody recognizes. I want to make sure that the board and Bryce Harris puts forward the report to the U.S. Department of Education at the very least, puts it in the form of Word, in Word format, so in fact it's acceptable to the Department of Education. But I think at a minimum, you have to do that. It's really important. It's time for the Board of Governors to stop being deniers. Just like deniers for global warming, just like some deniers for Galileo. Now that took quite a bit of time for the Catholic Church to decide that, in fact, Galileo is right. I'm just hoping that the Board of Governors doesn't take that long to understand the horrors, the destruction that ACCJC has perpetrated on the community colleges of California. I'm sorry to say that the Board of Governors and their actions around City College of San Francisco have not been helpful. And I hope that at this point you look more circumspect about what you've been doing. Now, I've put in a list for your perusal of some of the things that you might want to write as far as which sections of federal regulations are being routinely violated by ACCJC. There are other things that are not quite in there, that don't fall within the federal regulations. The lack of fair due process was raised before. It's difficult to show. The lack of academics on visiting teams is still apparent. Barbara Bino still is unwilling to recognize the definition of academics. It was told to her by the U.S. Department of Education in the court case. She made very clear that she still doesn't
30
believe.
seconds.
And you can go through all of these things. But finally, I'd like to say it is time to end the nightmare accreditation assault on California's community colleges. You should begin the process of finding another accreditor, not with it, and stop the talk of 5 to 10 years, and help Compton College get back their accreditation. I think at the very minimum, the colleges. We must stop the colleges lockstep
Thank you, Mr. Himmelman. Your time-
ACCJC mandated madness.
Thank you. Timothy Killikelly, followed by James McFadden, and then Dean Murakami.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Tim Killikelly, president of AFT 2121, a faculty union at City College of San Francisco. And I first want to thank the Accreditation Task Force for the fine work that they've done and coming up with what I consider some bold and truthful recommendations and proposals. As we all know, this has been a long time coming. The history has been recited here. In particular, the two pieces of history that seem the most recently for us is the audit report that really kind of made this process happen here, and also the lawsuit in San Francisco, the Herrera lawsuit, as well. And I think to me, it's not even just what the audit report says or what the judge said, but I also find it interesting was their response, the ACCJC's response. And so when it came, their response, official response to the audit report was just amazing to me. It was shrill and defensive rather than no reflection at all. Similar in the Herrera lawsuit, it was almost humorous where they kind of acted like they'd won the lawsuit when they actually hadn't won the lawsuit. And so this history has given rise to people taking action. And you should know that this board should take action, and we need to get rid of them as the accreditor. That's what needs to happen. And others are in the process of taking action as well. My local and California Federation of Teachers has a lawsuit that's going forward, different lawsuit. It's going forward. In the California legislature, AB 404 is now at the governor's desk. AB 1397, although it's now a 2-year bill, is also moving forward in the state legislature. And there's actually a new audit going to be done about what happened at Compton Community College. So that's also happening. And of course, as mentioned before, in December there'll be a meeting of NASICI, and they will be dealing with reviewing ACC's accreditation to be an accreditor. So all these things are happening. Other folks are ready to take action and are
30 seconds.
Thank you. And so you need to follow through as well. We want to work cooperatively to make sure that the proposals that come forward are going to be credible, that are going to work for the whole system. We recommend looking at things like moving to a different regional accreditor. Other regional accreditors exist who may be able to be taking this work on. And we want to make sure that you understand that even though we've had our critiques and we at City College have been, thank you, at ground zero of this, we want to move forward and work together to make sure that this actually happens and work cooperatively on that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. James McFadden, then Dean Murakami, and then Karen Saganor.
My name is James McFadden, and I speak as part of the old, more tenured faculty. I have been teaching at City College of San Francisco since 1973, and during most of those 42 years, I was part-time there and taught at College of San Mateo and Santa Rosa JC as well, so I've had a lot of experience. I want you to know that I enthusiastically support the task force finding that ACCJC lacks credibility, and I really appreciate the apparent recommendation of some urgency in this matter so that we find a new accreditor not 10 years from now, but by the spring. And I and other members of the City College faculty are very eager to work with the Board of Governors to identify a new accreditor and make a timely transition. California can't afford to have any other community colleges face the same fate that City College has faced. we have suffered tremendously as a result of the criminal behavior of ACCJC, with no complaint about the quality of our teaching or the quality of our education. We have gone from 100,000 students before this whole accreditation fiasco began to 70,000. And we don't know what happened to those other 30,000 students. There's been no great influx in other community colleges in our area since they dropped out of City College. And there doesn't seem to have been a huge influx of students into the four-year colleges. It seems clear that those 30,000 people just gave up out of a sense of frustration. Frustration at not being able to get the classes that they need. Frustration at
30 seconds.
At not at classes being canceled when they need them. The faculty at City College has done a heroic job trying to build up our enrollment, but it's going to take a long time, and we don't want to see this happen to any other community college in the state.
Thank you very much. All right, Dean Murakami, Karen Saganar, and Roger Scott. Go ahead, Dean.
Thank you. Dean Murakami, representing the Community College Council for California Federation of Teachers, and I also often speak for the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. President Baum, Chancellor Harris, and the board, I just want to say that it's very unfortunate that the ACCJC has forced us to come to this point. And I truly appreciate the gravity of the decision that this Board of Governors must make in this regard. However, I do have to make several points. You know, I've been part of Consultation Council since the first task force. And this task force report has evolved over that number of iterations and over those years, and it has been done with all due deliberation and with sobering resolve. Numerous attempts have been made in the past to collaborate with ACCJC on many of these issues, and they have consistently and oftentimes completely disregarded them. And from my point of view, oftentimes the ACCJC has treated the State Chancellor's Office itself in utter disdain. Within an organization such as ACCJC, when it feels it doesn't have any need to be transparent or accountable to anyone, it can become belligerent and dictatorial. That is ACCJC. It regards its internal functions and apparent status above that of the needs of our students and the community those colleges serve. These issues are of concern of all the community colleges and all of the districts. As for these reasons, I urge you to vote in favor of this report, support the vote of no confidence in ACCJC, and approve the recommendation that a new accreditation organization and model be investigated. I also want to urge the Board of Governors to consider sending in a third-party comment to the National Advisory Committee on Institutional Quality and Integrity that's due by September 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Saganar, Roger Scott, followed by Linda Sneed. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you very much. So I'm a librarian, and I want to provide you with a primary source that's readily available to you here. I heard earlier you were encouraged to read the 9 pages of the report. I'd like to also direct your attention to the last 4 pages. You don't even have to read them through. You can look at them. And in that's the end of the audit report that came out a year ago. And when that audit report came out, the president of ACCJC received it on June 4th, and on June 9th, she fired back a response to the auditor. And in that, she says that the report is all wrong, that they didn't really have the authority or the knowledge to do this, and she ends her letter by saying, such comments in the audit should be reviewed only as the personal opinion of the team. And so you can read that letter and see for yourself the lack of interest in change, the lack of interest in making improvements, and then you can also look at the response. This letter from Dr. Bino is really kind of typical of her writing. The only thing that's different is that this one was sent to somebody who isn't in her power. It was sent to the state auditor that cannot be disaccredited by ACCJC, and so you'll see that there are comments on that letter from the state auditor in which the state auditor identifies the various statements that were made and says, you know, that that one of the statements was absolutely false, that there's a baseless claim made by the commission, and that this is factually inaccurate, the things that has been said by the commission. So you can see for yourself that the problem, I'm very happy that the report is forward-looking. I think that's really a great thing, and that it talks about what an ideal creditor would be. But I want you to understand, it's not that our creditor is not ideal, and we want one that will be ideal. The problem is our creditor is totally not meeting the basic minimum requirements of a creditor, in that our creditor makes false statements and baseless claims, and our creditor rejects criticism out of hand most of the time. As you've heard, there has been very little change, and that change has come very slowly. And for an organization that's supposed to be working with us about continuous quality improvement, let's look at what we're doing and see how we could do things better. We have people in charge of us who don't actually think that way. And for those reasons, you know, it's not that our creditor is not ideal, it's that the creditor we have now, the longer they stay in power, the more extensive and severe the damage they will do to our community colleges. So please act as swiftly as you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roger Scott, is Linda Sneed still here? You're up, Linda, next. And then Joanne Waddell. Okay, please go ahead, Roger.
This is a momentous day. Hearing the task force report reminded me of a movie, a great movie in my judgment, very interesting and intelligent, that I might be one of the few people in the room old enough to remember, 12 Angry Men. It's my often examined but still firm conclusion that Chancellor Harris and the members of this body who support him, and by extension a failed organization like the ACCJC, are not allies of the people or conscientious policymakers of California, of the California Community College system, which you've been appointed to oversee. It doesn't take much wisdom or sense of history to recognize that California needs the kind of educational system we had decades ago when the California Master Plan for Higher Education and the GI Bill ensured that public higher education would be available and accessible to the overwhelming majority of the people. Statistically, I'm sure that the people in this room have had educational opportunities that have changed their lives. I'm an ordinary person from a neighborhood where more of my classmates went to prison or to the military than to college. But I was fortunate enough to enroll at Texas Tech when the tuition was $25 a semester. That was before some of you were born. That experience led to a rewarding, productive, and interesting life, including the opportunity to teach in 4 countries. Immersion in other cultures and languages was also an important part of my education. That personal history, shaped by common sense and some altruism, has moved me to demand that others have the same educational opportunities I've had, especially in a state like California. I've been critical of Chancellor Harris and this body, and I stand by those criticisms, but the recent report that we just heard on the ACCJC reveals that we've reached a new era, and I would truly like to be your ally in the important work ahead. That might surprise Chancellor Harris. My allegiance and goodwill, however, have 3 contingencies. 1, your current written statement that other people have encouraged you to make to the Department of Education by next Friday, the 25th, that would include the quote that you've often heard today about the California Community College system and its member institutions having lost faith in the ACCJC, which is an understatement, I think. And in my view, the Chancellor Harris would be the logical person to make that presentation to the Department of Education
30 seconds.
in December. Your commitment to implement the California Master Plan for Higher Education is the second, and you're accepting the educational and human responsibilities of providing to community college students the comprehensive courses, programs, and services they need and deserve. Thank you. And by the way, I know that Chancellor Harris was indulging in subtle ironic humor when he said replacing the ACCJC would be a multi-year project. we picked up on his humor.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We're in the home stretch here. Joanne Waddell, I'm sorry, Christine Hansen, and then Lynette Niaga. Those are all the cards I have for this item.
Chancellor Harris, President Baum, board members. I'm Joanne Waddell. I'm president of the Los Angeles College Faculty Guild, AFT 1521, representing 4,300 faculty on the 9 Los Angeles Community College campuses. I also serve as a vice president for CFT and as the Southern California vice president for the CFT Community College Council. This year I was honored by CFT to participate on the State Chancellor's Task Force in Accreditation, and I want to publicly thank my task force colleagues for their fierce and fearless willingness to do what was right and necessary. But titles and positions aside, my perspective is that of a 37-year community college instructor who cares very deeply for our students, our colleges, and our system. In those years, I have watched the accreditation process change, and I've seen the negative impact on resources and morale that those changes have brought without any return on investment to our students, our institutions, or our state. And so from that perspective, I urge the Board of Governors to do 3 things: adopt, develop, and do it now. First, adopt the task force recommendations unwaveringly, enthusiastically, without hesitation, and without reservation. Next, prioritize your work with the Chancellor to develop a process to select a new accreditor that exhibits the attributes outlined in the task force report will encourage the colleges to set their bars high and to be an incubator for passion in our students and a launching pad for innovation by our students. That environment will enhance student lives and will move the needle for the colleges and ultimately for the state of California. And finally, work quickly with stakeholders to identify a new accreditor, and this is important, in a reasonable and timely manner. A year or 2 is reasonable. Half a generation is not. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christine Hansen.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you so much for the reactivation of the Accreditation Task Force. The idea, however, that changes could take years strikes hard at the heart of the San Francisco Community College community. To survive, CCSF needs more here than robust conversation. Since the show cause and threatened closure by the ACCJC, there has been massive damage done to City College. Over 40,000 people have abandoned their educations. Unique and comprehensive programs have been gutted. Administrators that this body of governors have put in place have done much of this damage in the name of helping the school. To consider that changes to accreditation will take years and to allow San Francisco City College to dangle in the limbo world created by the ACCJC called restoration is to count on the college's demise, either at the hands of the ACCJC or by the continuing damage being done every day to the school. Under restoration, the major muscle, intelligence, and effort of the school are tasked to the perfection of minutia at the very moment when the resources must be put to resurrecting the school. A metaphor would be that an immense wildfire threatens the school, and instead of mounting the effort needed to put out the fire, the energies must be put instead towards repainting the house. A house that has been repainted several times, but found to be lacking not in quality, but in perfection. Imagine for a moment what it is like to be in the middle of a fire and told you must not pick up a shovel or a hose, but must continue to paint the house, else that house will be bulldozed. You as a body, as individuals, and also Chancellor Harris, please make completely clear to the Department of Education in the upcoming Federal Recognition Compliance Review for ACCJC, as they review the ACCJC's acceptance of the agency by others, that you have lost confidence in the ACCJC. Clearly and concisely state to Nasiki that the reign of terror that the ACCJC has held over the community colleges of the state must end today. Please.
30 seconds. Thank you. And Lynette Niaga.
Thank you. I am the president of the Community College Association, which is affiliated with the California Teachers Association. So these are my brothers and sisters from CFT, and I support what they say. But I also want to add that I actually saw the impact on one student, and I just want to tell you a brief story. This is a student who was at City College of San Francisco, and my sister was talking to him in San Mateo. He was working there, and he said, I have to leave City College because my program because the college is closing down, and I won't be able to do the program I'm doing, which was in health science. And I've tried to find that program at CSM, but they told me that I would have to start over. Now, that may or may not be true, but in that student's mind, it was true. And my sister said to him, so what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm just going to work here with my parents, and I'm going to give up on going to school because I've put so much time into it, I can't do it anymore. That's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about our students. And I know you, as the Board of Governors and the Accreditation Task Force, cares about the students more than anything else. And that's why what we do about this matters. I want to express my strong support for the Accreditation Task Force. I know it took a great deal of courage for them to come out with this report, and I am sure that having seen all of this, that you as the Board of Governors will support them in the work that they have done on your behalf. I also am concerned about the timeline, but my colleagues have already expressed those concerns. I share those concerns. I share the concerns about the impact on students at Solano College and College of the Sequoias, which are our colleges. We also had the same experiences, not as drastic, but still a great impact. So what I want to say to you today is that there is a great deal of support for the Accreditation Task Force. You can hear the support. I just want you to know it comes from many sources, and we will stand behind them as we go forward with the next steps in this struggle to make the accreditation system what we need for it to be for our students.
Thank you.
So that concludes the public comment portion of this agenda item. I'd like to open it up to the board for either questions or comments. And then Member Sumner.
I have a bunch, but I'm just going to focus on two. Why haven't we received anything in writing back from them as far as a response to how we're feeling about them from the ACCJC? I would think that they maybe would have shown up to sort of fight for them to say this is why we've done it. And then the second question I have is, how long does it take to get a new accreditation once we choose them? How long does it take to make that happen? Because that's huge.
Vice Chancellor Walker, will you go to the table so as
let me try to answer both of those, and Pam can back me up as to why the commission has not responded. Shortly after the release of the report, we did get a letter from the commission asking that the task force come to a meeting of the commission to discuss the report. And they proposed that on the 9th of October. And frankly, I was uncomfortable having that meeting unless there were some ground rules laid for a meeting like that. And so I wrote back to the commission and said, yes, we would be more than happy to have a conversation about the report, but that the 9th was sooner than would work for us, and that I wanted Dr. Walker and some of the task force members to have a conversation about ground rules, and then we would schedule the meeting, preferably for late October, in advance of your next meeting. The commission wrote back and said that they were going to go ahead and have the meeting anyway, and so they have scheduled it for the 9th, like they said to begin with, and that they would still be willing to meet with us, but that it would probably be January, which was the next time when the commission met. So that was the response I got. As to the timing of a transition like this, as I said a moment ago, we would come back to you in November with recommendations on how we go forward in terms of identifying the next steps, and then we'd come back to you in March with recommendation on a go-forward plan. And then how long it takes to transition 113 colleges to a new accreditor, really there are a number of variables in that make it difficult to predict. These accreditation cycles are 6 years in length currently, supposedly going to 7. So obviously you can't switch all those colleges at once, especially if they're currently accredited, until that cycle repeats itself. Otherwise, you end up doing hundreds of self-studies all at one time. So it probably does take a period of time after you have selected a new accreditor and they are prepared to begin accrediting our institutions. And then there are existing rules now that talk about institutions that are under sanction on one commission being able to apply to another. So there are a myriad of steps. It makes it very difficult to predict how long. Let us say, for example, in March we made a recommendation to you to go with a different accreditor and you approved that. It's difficult to say how long from that point to having all 113 of our colleges transition to that new accreditor it would take. But it won't be a matter of months. It will be a matter of years.
Just have a quick process question. We took the action as the board to remove the language that specifies only the ACCJC as the accreditation agency. What does it take for a WASC or another accreditation agency to be authorized to accredit California community colleges?
Accreditors or regional accreditors in the country, all accreditors, are authorized, or the U.S. Department of Education through NSEKI accredits the accreditors. And so the accreditor would have to be authorized to accredit associate degree granting institutions. The only one in our region currently authorized to do that is ACCJC. So the alternatives are to seek another accreditor in this region that could seek and gain acceptance from the U.S. Department of Education to accredit our colleges, or to seek another region's accreditor that currently has that authorization. So those are the alternatives that are available if the board were to decide to take that next step.
So we will be in active conversation with the Department of Education, but they will actually make whatever decision if there is a change in accreditor.
The U.S. Department of Education would have to authorize a transition of this kind, in that they have to approve the accreditor in this region to accredit associate degree granting institutions. So this board, by Title V, has the ability to select the accreditor for our colleges, but it has to be one, as the regulations say, that is authorized to accredit associate degree granting institutions in the Western region.
Member Malliman, then Member Budnick.
Not that I'm suggesting this, but is a third option that ACCJ stays and the entire organization leaves and we get a whole new organization and they reshuffle so they don't have to go through all those national things?
I think there are a myriad of options, and one of the reasons that we think the next 2 months are critical is to have further dialogue about what those options are. And then when we come to you in November, we will probably suggest a more direct course of action to determine. And I think there are a myriad of opportunities: finding an accreditor from another region, getting the senior commission to seek and receive ability to accredit our institutions. You may decide ultimately that a reconstituted existing commission makes sense, or a joining together of the two, the senior and the community college commission, as you would find in the other 5 regions in the country, makes sense. So there are a variety of alternatives. It's just a matter of getting from here to November and then ultimately November to March, coming to you with a solid recommendation.
Thank you.
Member Budnick.
When did the Chancellor's office receive the report?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago Friday? About 2 weeks ago.
I mean, is there anything that we can, I mean, I know this is informational, is there anything that we can do as a board now to help you expedite this process, to give you any guiding principles. I mean, I think it was very clear what we heard from some very intelligent people. I wish there was some type of recommendation today that we could actually act on. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm more asking the board this question than the Chancellor's office. Do we believe that there's anything that we are all in agreement on that we can push forward with today? And has anyone thought of a motion to obviously not make full recommendations, but anything that could push us forward and gain us some momentum immediately?
Well,
Member Budnick?
Go ahead.
I mean, I have actually a question to answer that. I don't know why I would ask Chancellor and Vice Chancellor Walker maybe to respond to this. I don't know why we wouldn't transmit this report, because it's a really well-written report. Great writing, David. I had no idea you were so talented. I knew you were very talented, but it was really concise and very clear. And it was unanimous, which is also extremely impressive after having sat through a year and a half of these types of meetings. So I guess I'm asking the Chancellor, what is the harm in just transmitting this report to the Department of Education? I just want a little bit more information about what is this deadline, what is this consideration that I don't really quite understand what's happening and the deadline on Friday. If somebody could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a federal NSEKI deadline, and it is fully our intention to transmit this report to the U.S. Department of Education between now and Friday. The reason that
Right.
we haven't stated that is because I make it a practice not to get out ahead of this board. So you're seeing it today. Tomorrow, I begin to communicate with the U.S. Department of Education.
So I would move. Can I make a motion?
I mean, we can't really make a motion, is my understanding. It's
Why
not
not?
an action
Why not?
item. Okay, well, I'll seek.
So I'd like to
guidance
make a
from our
motion and make it an
counsel.
action item.
Okay, right. So I will seek guidance from our council. Are
can make a
we
motion.
able to? What are we able to do as a board to act on it?
What I understand since
Oh,
No, I'm talking to our council.
Get ahead of yourself, Ravneet. You don't have the law degree yet.
Under the Bagley-Keene Act and the Brown Act, there is an ability, as long as the public is aware of what the subject matter is, that the board can convert an information item into an action item. However, I would advise that in the interest of the transparency of we making this known to the board, to the public rather, that this is an informational item, that we remain to have it as an informational item. However, the motion with regards to various activities that could be done with the report, for instance, the motion to send it to the Department of Education is a logistical motion and can be done.
That is right.
So wait, do we have a?
I was
I
about
want
to
the
make a
Vice
motion.
President to make a motion.
I move that the Board of Governors direct the Chancellor to transmit the report of the Accreditation Task Force to the U.S. Department of Education before Friday this
Second.
week.
Is there anything that the Chancellor, this is the report of the task force.
That's right, it's the task force.
Is there a letter that should be attached to it from the Chancellor or to speak to?
That the Board of Governors directed that it be transmitted to the Department of Education for informational purposes.
So we have a motion and a second. We're going to talk about that motion first. And I want to make sure that if the Chancellor has any either points or clarification he needs as far as the sense of the board.
No, I understand. You'd like me to write a letter to the U.S. Department of Education telling them that you've directed me to send this report to them. And I think, frankly, it's important that the letter spell out the findings in the report as well, because this is a big document and it would be easy to get lost in it.
Will you also convey that they...
Sounds perfect.
I'm going to ask for an amendment too. Will you convey that this report was presented at a public hearing and that there was considerable discussion about it, so that it wasn't just a report that was filed, but it was something that the board looked at very carefully?
That it was unanimous. The
we
recommendations of the task force were unanimous. That's really important.
Is there Any other questions about the motion? Member Sumner?
Would it be appropriate to add to that, in the meantime, to have other agencies start getting information from other agencies so we're not behind the curveball, like other outside agencies that are accreditation? Start the ball rolling. Let people start making the bids coming forward. Why should we wait?
I'm going to weigh in just one thing.
I don't know.
I would prefer to have the chancellor recommend a process by which
Sorry about
we go through the acting on the recommendations, so that. But I think the sense of the board is very enthusiastic about seeking alternatives. But I'd like the chancellor.
I would recommend that you wait until November to take that next step, because there are groups that you've heard about that are currently looking at the report and will make decisions about endorsement, and in some cases lack thereof. There may be at least one or two groups that come back and tell you they don't agree with this report. And so I think part of what we've done by providing you information now and coming back to you in November is we provided an opportunity for the field to have a conversation about this. And again, I don't think there's any reason to see that as a delaying tactic, because it's not.
Member Budnick and then Member Hawkins.
So, I mean, all the signs I'm getting from reading the report to hearing everyone on the same page in the commission, to hearing everyone in the public on the same page, to hearing Senator Nielsen, and although I don't agree with his politics, he is one of the greatest gentlemen of all time, his characterization of the CEO, and then hearing Chancellor Harris's comments on the October 9th meeting that you asked to delay, which they refused to delay. It just paints a picture to me that is that's very clear. Let's just leave it at that. And this comes back to timing for me. If hypothetically we found out, and this is not the case, but hypothetically we found out that a body that worked with us or someone we had contracted with us was in business with Mexican drug cartels and there was a federal investigation, we'd probably get out of business with them tomorrow. We wouldn't wait a decade. So I would just love, in terms of the November recommendations, to attempt to move with urgency rather than move like a bureaucracy.
Member Hawkins.
Thank you. Not that you don't, but I definitely want to make sure that the board has a copy of that letter when it's transmitted, Chancellor Harris.
Member Avalos.
Points too. I mean, to me, what I heard was it wasn't really the structure. To me, I mean, it felt like, in terms of review process, how it happens, the meticulous ways they look at review. I didn't find that as much. Maybe I didn't hear correctly, but I didn't find that was the big rub. What I found was the leadership, the personality, the direction of the organization we're talking about. So to me, going back to Member Malamu's question around, can we change the personnel and not the organization? That's kind of what I received from this conversation. Because, do we really want to wait a year or 2 years? I mean, is that a big, is that a long time to wait to have this process?
One of the things I do want to look at, because I'm excited about this process, and I think that our system has evolved considerably. We are now offering baccalaureate degrees, for example. We're now evolving in the fields that we're offering. Maybe an accreditation agency that also does four-year colleges and universities might be a more appropriate agency for which our schools should be looking at. And so I'm hoping that all of those, I really appreciate the ideal attributes of an accrediting organization that are articulated here, because your task force member from Ventura, who said that it's focusing on improvement rather than compliance. That's what I would hope. I've served on accreditation visitation teams. It's how we can all work together. So, I think all things should be on the table, and then I'm hoping that there is an opportunity to then get some recommendations from the chancellor, especially at some point that we'll have to still talk to our current accreditation. A number of colleges just got reaccredited in June, and they have 6 years. And so no matter what anybody thinks, we're going to be working with this accreditor for at least the next several years. And so I think we need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think I think your point is very well made. And my only initial response would be, I think that this report bears out that the field feels like the changes that the existing commission are making are too little too late. And that possibly just changing the people in the leadership roles might also be too little too late. Having said that, I think that there are options available to us that would involve leadership changes and therefore more open attitude toward bringing together the Western region, as is the case in the other 5 regions. And so when you look at this, there may be a relatively easy way to deal with this or a somewhat harder way. And I think time will tell which of those we get to do.
I mean, to me, it seems like it could be a multi-prong approach, right?
Yes.
You do, short-term versus long-term. You do short-term, immediate, like Mr. Butnick mentioned, immediate, and then you go into long-term, which is, look at the other options that we have in front of us. So if the short-term doesn't work, at least we have the long-term ready to go.
I have to think, too, we're the official agency that interacts with the federal government when it comes to California community colleges. So by even taking the action that's on the table, that will send a very powerful message because even though we don't authorize we don't accredit accreditors, we still speak for the system.
That's right.
And I've got to think that the Department of Education will listen very carefully to what the Board of Governors and the Chancellor have found.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this? I'm going to go ahead, Member Belinsky.
Just when you go to the vote, I want to recuse myself from the vote.
I was going to
not abstain, but recuse.
Sure. And because of the importance of this vote, I'm going to ask for a roll call of this on this particular topic. Is there anybody else that would wish to speak to the motion? Okay, so. And just if you could restate the motion as you have it so we're clear. Does Cecilia want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to restate it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Karen, I thought you were going to, but I'll restate it. The motion is that the Board of Governors direct the Chancellor to transmit the report of the task force to U.S. Department of Education by this Friday, September 25th, and that there be a cover letter that directs the Department of Education to the recommendations of the task force, notes the unanimous vote of the task force members, and that the Board of Governors has asked that this be transmitted to the Department of Education. Did I get it all?
Yep.
Arnaldo Avalos,
Yeah, A, yes.
Jeffrey Baum,
Aye.
Joseph Valensky,
Recused.
Scott Budnick,
Aye.
Jeff Burdick, Connie Conway,
Aye.
Thomas Epstein,
Aye.
Cecilia Estelano,
Aye.
Danny Hawkins,
Aye.
Revney Kaur, Deborah Malumed,
Aye.
Gary Reed, Valerie Shaw, Nancy Sumner.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. The Chancellor will share with us the correspondence and with the Department of Education. We'll now move on to item.
Yeah, just so that the minutes do
Yes.
say that, just so the minutes do say I was recused.
Yes.
Just say
Yeah.
unanimous.
Right.
Right.
With one recusal, correct.
And is there any other comments from board members on that topic? Again, I want to thank Vice Chancellor Walker and the members of the task force for bringing this to the board, and now I'm looking forward to the Chancellor taking leadership on acting on those recommendations. Item 4.6, Adult Education Block Grant. Chancellor Van Ton Quinlivan, and I will turn it over to the Chancellor.
Thank you, President Baum, members of the board. This next item on the Adult Education Block Grant is the second action in this regard. You will recall that at a previous meeting you were asked to approve the overall program, and today we're asking you to come back and provide information regarding the Adult Education Block Grant. Vaughn?
Thank you very much, Chancellor and members of the board. So we come to you with to do a deep dive into some of the areas as we committed last time. I'm here with Deborah Jones, Dean of Career Education Services. If you remember this slide, we assumed fiscal lead in the 2015-16 budget as of this past July for the adult education system at the request of the governor's office. As a result, $525 million was put into the budget for 2015-16. And if you remember the objectives, there were three parts to that. As you can see in the gray, the first objective was to stabilize the K-12 providers, existing K-12 providers. Then the green is to provide better coverage so that more adults can access education and training and build up their skills. And then lastly, in the purple, is some funding for setting up the new accountability and assessment system. So if you remember, it was highly prescriptive budget language. And the good news is that for the $337 million, with the support of Vice Chancellor Troy's office, we successfully moved the monies over to the K-12 Department of Education in the timeline that was prescribed. What you have in your board package is a breakdown of the $163 million that went to the consortia of providers. And if you remember, they were the modeling for those, and that those allocations were also highly prescribed in the budget language. And you see on the top far corner are the need indicators. And Dean Deborah Jones will go through how they were modeled. And then lastly, we wanted to provide you the latest and greatest update on the $25 million for accountability.
Good afternoon, President Baum, Vice President Estolano, and Chancellor Harris, and board members. Thank you so much for having us. So as you do recall, the language for AB 104 was very prescriptive. And on the far right-hand side, there are 6 indicators. The first 5 of those were prescribed in the budget language. With discussions with the Department of Finance, the Department of Education, and the State Board of Education, that 6th indicator, poverty, was added. The indicators were prescribed, the variables and the factors were not. So most of those came from census population. Adult population, and you see that up in the far right, were all the 18-year folks who are 18 years and older for each of the regions. Employment used unemployed adults, and this is from census population. Immigration used the American Community Survey's adult limited English proficiency data as a proxy, as the census did not have that data. Educational attainment, we used the factor of no high school diploma, again in the census data. Adult literacy used the American Community Survey's adults with less than a 7th grade education, and again that was a proxy because the census didn't have that data. And poverty was household poverty taken from the census data. These indicators and these factors we used, we spent time with demographers, like I said, the State Board of Education, California Department of Education, and the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance took the final spreadsheet and sent back their recommendations. These indicators, these 6 indicators, were weighted evenly, and there was you'll see it in your printout, each region received an amount, a regional amount. This will begin in October. In AB 86, which was the planning language, folks, every region had a choice to be a fiscal agent, and it could either be a community college district or a K-12 district. AB 104 changed that. Community college districts, K-12 districts, county offices of education, or folks could opt out, regions could opt out. So on this slide, you can see that 44 community college districts have opted to be the fiscal agent or fund administrator, as it's referred to in the language. in AB 86 in the planning, we had 55 community college districts and 15 K-12 districts who were fund administrators. This time there are 13 K-12 districts, 2 county offices of education. 7 consortia have opted out of having a fund administrator. And what that means is they will come together as a region, roll up their data and submit it, and they will be paid directly. If they are a community college, they'll be paid by the Chancellor's office. If they're K-12, they'll be paid by the Department of Education. 5 were undecided, and then there's $5 million of withholding. Those who opted out, Chabot, Contra Costa, Foothill, De Anza, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Jose, West Valley, which is combined, and Santa Monica. Those who have not made a decision, Merced, Redwoods, Riverside, Santa Clarita, and Ventura. And finally, this Thursday and Friday, we're having a summit. It was described a little bit in your handout. Here are some of the highlights. No, I'm sorry, I'm on the last page with the summit. No, let's do the $25 million in accountability. Forgive me. There was $25 million that went to the California Department of Education originally. It has been sent back to the California community colleges, and we are jointly working with the Department of Education, the State Board of Education, the Department of Finance. Again, in the language, the number of adults who demonstrate improved literacy skills, completion of high school diploma, completion of post-secondary certificate, degree, or training program, placement into jobs, improved wages, and transfer, meaning the transition from one agency, the K-12 agency, to the community college. These were outlined in the legislation, and these will be what we will measure. These will be the outcomes for this new adult education program. The agencies, Department of Finance, State Board of Ed, Department of Ed, and the Chancellor's Office, and fiscal from everyone. We've met several times, and we are moving forward putting this together. In the meantime, we have put together a 1-year accountability plan that all of the consortia will use until we make that longer-term decision, and the accountability is aligned with what we currently do with our MIS system, what CDE currently does, and what WIOA does. And then finally, the Adult Education Planning Summit happening this Thursday and Friday, and you are invited to attend as much of it as you can.
Thank you for that concise presentation. I will just ask the one question I know the other board members would probably ask is just how will you be able to evaluate the effectiveness of these funds as they are disseminated across the state?
So we've put together a toolkit. We can go back once. No, it's not going to go back one slide. Okay. The fourth slide talks about the legislation and what they deem, what the language deems, the effectiveness of a consortia. And not only is it student outcomes, but it's consortia outcomes. So we're looking at partnerships, at governance, at decision-making ideas. A toolkit is up on our website, and that website is there on the handout and on the PowerPoint, that this is what the consortia have to turn in. They have to report quarterly what they've spent and what they've spent their money on. The language also was very clear about what kinds of activities, the 7 areas of student areas that the money could be used for. So we have 2 people in our office who do this full time. This is a part-time something in my portfolio. And Department of Education received 3 positions, and they'll be working with us full-time to monitor funding to the consortia.
Okay, thank you. Member Hawkins?
I think Member Shaw was first.
Oh, Member Shaw?
I wanted to know, why did LA and I think you said Santa Monica, they opted out? Why?
So there were many reasons for opting out. One of the reasons was folks couldn't get together in the planning, and they felt that it was easier to receive money directly from their agency.
Oh.
So sometimes there were 2 examples where a fiscal agent had processes in place, logistical board processes in place, that created a time lapse between when they could get the money to their agencies. For example, if the threshold on a board at a local district is $500, that everything must go before the board, any expenditure over that needs to go before the board, they would have to wait for that next board meeting. Some boards didn't meet except quarterly. So those consortia, those 5 consortia, opted out mainly for that reason. They felt that they would get their money sooner.
Oh, I see.
And others, just governance.
Governance.
Member Hawkins?
Thank you, President Baum. I'd be curious to know if there's a statewide total of the unmet need for adult education. I believe each consortia identified a regular staggering number, but seeing how we're an entire state, I'd be curious if we have that so we could put this in perspective with what this nice amount of money is, but what the task or what the Mount Everest really is.
So in the original plans that the 71 consortia turned in last year, they had to do exactly that. And the amount that they came up with was about $2.3 billion to meet the
Could you
need
say
for
that again, please?
$2.3 billion. And that was to meet the need for just those 5 areas: ESL, immigration basic skills.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead. Member.
Agencies at LA.
So when I look at this graph, so 163 million went to the community colleges, and 337 million went to stabilize K-12. What's that mean? Stabilize K-12?
So in 2012-13, there was language. The adult education had K-12 adult education had a budget of about $650 million. 2008 flexibility came into being, and those districts that received adult education funds could use those funds for any educational purpose. That meant that district boards, superintendents, and principals made decisions to put some of those adult education funds into their K-12 activities, transportation, 4th grade classes, whatever it was. Those districts, there were some districts that chose not to put all of their money or only a proportion of their money into those K-12 activities, and they maintained their adult education investment. In 2012, there was legislation for those districts who had maintained their investment had to keep that investment level for the next 2 years. So that $337 million is representative of, it is actually certified, it is the exact dollars that the K-12 districts, the investment that they maintained into adult education. That's that fund. Now the remainder goes both to K-12 and community college districts.
So for 2016-17, do we know what the budget might be for adult ed?
So we were given a $500 million budget. Is that what you mean?
No, so looking forward, is there 2016-2017, is there an allocation in the budget for adult ed, or is this?
So in the budget language, the $337 million is going directly to the K-12 providers. In the budget language, it said for 17-18, that money comes to the regions and will be put out regionally rather than to each individual provider.
But to answer your question, it is reasonable to assume, because this is Prop 98 dollars, and it was previously all in K-12, and then as the governor and finance and legislature redirected it to us, and yet required that we keep the maintenance of K-12. We had been on record as asking for considerably larger to do this, so it is reasonable to assume that in these budget negotiations that Dan talked about earlier, leading up to the January budget, we'll certainly be talking to finance about the 2 point whatever billion needs that we've been talking about.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for that presentation. Go on to the next item is board member reports. We will start with Member Shaw.
Well, I attended the workforce town hall in Los Angeles. It was a wonderful meeting. And I also had a meeting with Larry Frank of Traytech.
Member Epstein?
Nothing to report.
Member Burdick?
Very briefly, I appreciated the chancellor coming to Clovis community for our celebration of becoming a college. I was glad to be able to go to the Santa Rosa campus with the Vice Chancellor Vince Stewart and with member of Palos to look at their Hispanic serving programs throughout the campus. Really very impressive and a I wish we'd been able to spend 2 days there. There was plenty to see. Third thing is I had a chance to talk to Naomi Forey, who's the president of the Health Services Association of the Community Colleges. They have about 140 nurses and campus health professionals representing about half of our campuses. And I hadn't known too much about them, and I thought it was interesting to have the conversation. Their organization focuses on best practices for health on our campuses, and also the development of data to inform our decisions. We focused a lot on the student equity issue and how health, mental health, and emotional health really does influence student success. And her suggestion, and the suggestion of their organization, is that we start looking at health issues as part of our equity plans, which I thought was worth bringing forward. Thank you. Member Kaur?
I actually have kind of a long report. So a few things have happened since the last meeting. I've been making more of a conscious effort to connect with other student BOG members from the UC and CSU system. I was able to attend the UC Congress conference, which I met with the regent and the student regent, and we talked about issues surrounding voter registration and increasing Cal Grants. So it was nice to see that Cal Grant C was something that the body was focusing on. This body was focusing on increasing. So in August, in the Student Senate meeting, there was like a 15-minute report given by Sarah Mullen on workforce and economic development, which was really great. It talked about the future town hall meetings, so that was really good to see. There was also like a 6-hour line item that was a Brown Act violation put in by a senator towards the entire executive board. And I wanted to note that the last BOG report that I was able to give to the Student Senate was during their June 6th meeting, and they meet monthly. And for me, sitting on that board, it's very troubling knowing that most of the student members don't know what the BOG is, and the Student Senate is the body that the board has recognized to serve the students and to increase student success. From what I've known from seeing the body for the last year, a majority of the shared governances are unfilled, and a lot of the reports are not provided or sent back to the students. They were also responsible for sending out the student member application, and when I looked for the application online, I didn't find it. And then when I contacted the president asking for the application just to make sure that it was publicly accessible to all students, his response was to ask me why I needed it and then sent me to empty links. So I saw the application passively on Facebook. If you look on the website, the application is not there. And when I asked if the application is, I guess it's been closed. And it's not something that I was aware about being the BOG student member, and it's something I've tried to keep in the loop about. So I'm not really sure how other students are getting this information. It's pretty well known that the SSCCC wants to separate from the Chancellor's Office. They filed for incorporation before the students even voted on it last year. Dr. Nolden isn't here, but both her and I were in shock when neither the Chancellor's Office or the BOG was informed that they filed for incorporations, let alone the students or the body. I really feel like the Student Senate needs restructure and guidance provided by either the Chancellor's Office or the BOG. I want to emphasize that this concern is not coming just from me, but the Chancellor's Office liaison that attends these meetings, members of the Student Senate, and worse, the public comments. If you listen to any Student Senate meeting, the public comments will go on for hours, talking about how unproductive, unreliable, and untransparent the body has become. And this is really hard for me because I feel like we can't reach out to students alone. Something I've really wanted to do is when there's meetings happening or town halls happening, I'd let that body know so they could send it out in a listserv. None of it has been publicized, and I feel like the application that was sent out for the BOG wasn't fair, and I don't know if it was sent out. I don't know about it, and so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of this body. The liaison from the Chancellor's Office to the Student Senate has expressed numerous times about the lack of reports and the structures in the body, and it's gotten so bad that the UCSA board, which is a sister partner, has threatened to cut ties with the Student Senate. Currently, as it states, I don't think the SSCCC is the adequate body to represent the BOG or the Chancellor's Office, and I think that we should mandate a report given by them to show that what they've done. In the past, the prior Student Senate representation body was actually cut off because of the lack of work they're doing, and the last meeting had the 10-hour removal process that was sent in within the body, and the meeting before that was a 7-hour election process. And none of my reports have been heard. None of the reports by other people who have come to that body have been heard. And the reason that really made me want to bring this forward was a member from a body that works closely with us, I don't want to identify them, they came and said that I should nudge the Student Senate into doing more work. And I feel like I can't do that alone, and I feel like they should be really evaluated if they're the ones serving the students. If we're here doing this for the students, I feel like that body should be monitored. And I don't know how that's going to go since they have incorporated, but I would really like to see a report sent out by them to us.
Thank you for that report. Since you raised some important issues, I'm just going to ask Vice Chancellor Walker to chime in very quickly.
So, Dr. Nolden is in Washington, D.C. for us these last few days. She'll be in tomorrow. She and Eric Skinner and I have talked about this several times. Some of us have been involved in different iterations of this. And what we'll do is sit down with Dr. Nolden tomorrow. Heard exactly what you said. I think it's exactly what we've been saying. And we'll put a plan together and bring it back.
Great. Thank you very much.
So, is that good?
Thank you.
Okay.
Member Avalos.
Hey, all right. So I went to Santa Rosa Community College. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Stewart, for arranging that. It was great. Went to one of the best culinary school dinner lunches that we had there. It's actually a full-service restaurant ran by the students, which is really impressive. So that was really something something I haven't seen in the system yet, an actually full-scale restaurant. So that was great. Went to Hartnell Community College. I got a tour of Hartnell. As I mentioned before, there's a great program called CSIT3, basically getting a degree in computer science in 3 years. I actually saw I met with the first cohort. They're going to graduate this year in 2016. There are about 25 of them. Talked to about 5 of them, and all 5 of them have internships over all 25, actually 23 out of the 25 internships over the summer. I talked to 5 of them, and those 5 that I did talk to have actual full-time offers for next year, earning anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000, which is amazing. It's amazing because these are all blue-collar kids coming from East Salinas, mostly from the Salinas Valley, and they're going to come out making 2 to 3 times the salary of their combined parents, which is amazing. So that was great, and obviously meeting the students, seeing the program, walking through the program. I encourage any and all of you to go do this because it's just transformational. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Conway?
Well, I'm happy to have something to
Put your
report.
mic closer.
Oh, I did put it away on purpose because I was making comments over here. They weren't as rude as some of the public testimony, but they weren't nice either. So on September 11th, I participated in the Central Valley Motherlode Region Counselor Conference that was held for high school counselors, community college counselors, and adult school. And the title of it was Success in the New Economy. I spoke a little bit and then ran a panel, an industry panel, talking about career tech education vital for California. And the industry panel was to seek greater understanding around employer needs in the region. So it was actually for employers, one of which was High Speed Rail, a hospital association, CDI, which is a cooperative dairy group. They produce Challenge products, if you've ever had Challenge butter or ice cream or any of that. And then a company called, it's Munger Brothers Farms, which is a well-kept secret. They are actually an international business. They are the largest blueberry growers in the world, and they're around, but their headquarters, their California headquarters are in Delano, California, just south of Tulare County in Kern County. And one of the questions was to the panel that we started discussing was the top 3 occupations that they have a hard time filling. And so each one had, various things to talk about. A lot of it was hands-on. A lot of it was, required mechanics of some sort, not necessarily engineering, but actually being able to fix a machine, program a machine, but fix a machine, and those kind of things. And then in my ever-ending need to let everybody say what they want to say, rather than run the panel, I opened it to questions, which was kind of fun. And a lot of the counselors had, very good questions and wanted to know a lot of things. One of the things that disturbed me coming out of it was one of the gentlemen from CDI said, a degree in English literature is great, but it's not useful to us at all. But he said one of the biggest problems they have, and everyone else agreed, is that the ability to pass a drug test for employment prevents the majority of the applicants for any of these type of jobs from being selected. It's not a problem that we can solve. Is Member Shaw still here? We talked about this a little bit. She has solutions. She'll tell you about that later. Anyway, that was kind of eye-opening to me. It's something we don't think about. So we can do great training and get folks ready and find jobs and do internships, but there's social issues that I don't know that this board can solve. Anyway, I made it a really long report. It was supposed to be a short and happy report. And one other item, I'm kind of somewhat embarrassed and very humbled by the fact that on October 8th, College of Sequoias is inducting me into their Hall of Fame.
Fantastic.
It's very nice, but I don't deserve it. But it was really nice of them to do it, so thought I'd share that with all y'all.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
We're delighted.
I know. What am I going to do?
Member Maluman?
I went, my report is I went to my local Board of Trustee meeting 2 weeks ago, and I've talked to David Morse about why some of this happened, but it was fascinating. They have some new board members, so they're learning, but the questions were, well, we had our projected budget, and now the budget you want us to pass has so much more money in it. Where did all this money come from? And then it was, you want to hire all this faculty? I disagree with that. I think that's much too fast. So it was eye-opening, you know, and I do it on purpose because we're up here and I want to see what's going on down there. So again, there's some reasons why some of this conversation happened and other backstories. But again, I just want you to know we're so happy we're getting money, and they're not always so happy. So just to give you a little perspective.
That's great. Thank you for doing that. Member Sumner?
That's true. I had a couple of great opportunities. The bright one was that I presented an 8th grader with a patriotic pin that's through the VFW, and what it is every year they can do. The kids do writing, different age groups, and then they can go up to patriotism, which can be $20,000 to $30,000, and they win money. And this young girl, she was an 8th grader, and she wrote this wonderful article, and so she came like second in state of California. So then we did a presentation to her this week, and it took us months to catch up because I really wanted to recognize her in front of veterans and a variety of veterans. So her and her mother showed up, and then when I gave it to the writers group of a bunch of veterans from Glendale College and PCC, they were so overwhelmed, and just the emotion, especially one of them, he wrote something for her, and then he ended up pinning his Desert Shield Storm medal on her this last weekend. Wow. And I had to read it, and I'm crying, and here are all these guys crying. We had 89-year-olds, 80-year-olds at this barbecue, and I just got a text from the girl. She was just so impressed, and I told her I would come to her Girl Scout troop and, and talk with them about what she'd done, but she was talking about putting flags and different things, but it was just such a beautiful article. But there's ways for people to make money, children, through the VFW, through writers, things that they can do, and they can, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to get extra money. And we've got a Veterans Village in Glendale is going to be opening up with 44 units, which I'm really excited about. 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, so there'll be children, there'll be kids. It's working with some different organizations, and some of the students will be, we believe, going to PCC and GCC. So we're really excited with that, which ties it into the Veterans Coalition. And we talked about the grants and the scholarships. So that was really exciting. And I had an opportunity to meet with Lindsay Sens, and she's a Deputy Secretary for the Women and Veteran Affairs. And I know that Chancellor Harris, you've also met and talked with her, and she's going to be a part of the summit, the Veteran Summit in March that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be working with Pam and Vincent. So everything's sort of coming into play because it's going to be in our backyard as far as in Southern California. So I'm really hoping to get Patriot Hall, which is the old Bob Hope building, them involved with it more, and really try to get some of the coalition in, because, the mayor there is homeless, especially for veterans. So I'm really excited about that. So please abuse me and use me. And I'm just really proud to be here, and I love the decisions we're making, and I know they're not easy, and it takes time. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Sumner. Member Belinsky?
I attended the ACBO budget workshop held at Las Positas College, where Barry Russell, who many of us know is now the college president there. I want to say thank you to Vice Chancellor Troy and his team for really a great presentation on the budget and the very helpful binder that they pass out to all of the attendees. I also attended a 2-day enrollment management conference held at San Mateo College in August. Quite well done. A special thanks to Vice Chancellor Tenna and Executive Director Paul Steenhausen, who ran the event. I have to say the 2-day conference was exceptional. I then, as many of you may know, attended the Strong Workforce Wrap-Up Town Hall in San Francisco. That which caught my attention was how many people from business and industry were in the room. The room was packed and people were standing. So they're taking that very seriously. And a special thanks to the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor Tom Quinlivan for their hard work. I also attended an Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative workshop that was held in early September, and it was at Kenyatta College. It was run by Paul Steenhausen and Dr. Roger Purnell, who's with the RP group. Probably one of the most informative parts of the day was the student panel. And an extensive time devoted to a student panel, where students who've not succeeded in the past and a second time around or whatever were succeeding and talking about all of the things necessary at a college and how Kenyatta listened to them and incorporated those things into a variety of services that was happening there. I was struck by the fact that one student who has now transferred to San Francisco State is still involved at Kenyatta. He said, even though I'm at San Francisco State, I can't leave here. I've got to stay here and work with students. I've got to make all of us successful. And the other thing about him that caught my attention is this student lives near Diablo Valley College, which is way in the East Bay, and drove daily to Kenyatta College because it's the college he decided that would work for him. And he got an associate's degree in engineering. And I'll be attending several conferences in October and November. I have to be honest, it's the kind of thing that helps me stay up to date on all these issues.
Thank you very much, Member Belinsky. Member Hawkins?
No report.
Vice President Estolano?
Very briefly, first, Member Corr, thank you for your report. It's really helpful for us to hear what the Student Senate is facing and some of the challenges, and I commend you really taking your role very seriously. So we depend on you to do exactly what you just did, and it's okay that it took as long as it is. It's really important stuff, so thank you. My report is I attended an all-day design session with Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, trying to look at how that foundation might direct its efforts to promote current technical education for high school students, and it was really terrific, and obviously it had a good result for our system. And then I also attended the Los Angeles Town Hall closeout for the Strong Workforce Task Force meeting, also very, very well attended. LA Trade Tech was a terrific partner for us on that. They had a very busy day as well. I think did they have the Secretary of Transportation that same day? So thankfully they accommodated us as well. And just in closing, we are in the final stretches of the Strong Workforce Task Force process, and I just can't say enough about Von Tonquillivan's team and just how you just kept it on track, and it's been really remarkable. So thank you very much for engaging so many of us all throughout the process. It's really made us feel ownership of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the last item on the agenda is public forum.
We have two members of the public, David Morse and Sharon Bogle. The great author, David Morse.
Thank you, although it was a group effort by all means. So, just a couple of things, President Baum, Chancellor Harris, and board members. A few things that I want to just give a very brief update on. First of all, right after lunch, we put out the copies of our most recent issue of our publication, The Rostrum, along with a flyer just giving you a little more information on our efforts with CID. So hope you'll take a look at those. Want to let you know just a little bit about a couple of our activities. First of all, you had the report yesterday on the recommendations from the Workforce Task Force. We will be holding 4 regional meetings around the state to gather faculty input on those recommendations, and we'll be therefore able to discuss them at our upcoming plenary session in November, and we'll be able to bring you, again, more input on those recommendations and implementation of those recommendations in November. Speaking of our plenary session, do want to call your attention to that. Our biannual State Academic Senate plenary session will be held November 5th through 7th in Irvine. And again, we often have a couple of members, our faculty members. Member Valinsky, often comes. Manu Abaka often did, and we hope to have. But we would be happy to have any of you who were interested to come and join us for any part of the plenary session, to sit in with us and hear our discussions and see what it is that we are working on. So you are absolutely all invited, and I would be happy to send anyone more information that is interested. And finally, just to call to your attention, I may have mentioned at the last meeting, but to be certain, we are putting on a new institute in January 21st to 23rd, on instructional design and innovation. And that is, again, it's a new institute, very broadly covering a number of topics, but several of them things that came up for you in your discussions yesterday, involving contextualization of basic skills in CTE and in general in other courses. Non-credit instruction, we have a strand that we expect to be working with. Basic skills in general and innovation in basic skills in various different ways, as well as online education and other things too. So it's very broadly on educational innovation, but several of the topics that you touched on yesterday. And again, I can bring you more information on that in November, but any of you who are interested in joining us would be absolutely welcome. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vogel.
Back again. Sharon Vogel, president of FAC, which stands for the Faculty Association for California Community Colleges, and we've been around for about 62 years. At our 60th anniversary, we went through our history, and actually some of our beginning founders helped organize and get through the Ed Code and Title V language that established the Academic Senate, so we are great partners. We have about 11,000 members, both full-time and part-time faculty, and our mission is about advocacy for community college faculty. We're very strong in advocacy. Advocacy for faculty, full-time and part-time, but also for students. We also sponsor a number of bills, and we have a commitment to student access, opportunities, and progress. And we also have a commitment to community colleges are the driving force for the economic growth and social cohesiveness, so that equity that is out there that we need to have. And we also focus on collegiality to enhance diversity and promote professional development. Professional development is our other strong arm in our organization. And I can't stress that enough. We just finished a sold-out diversity conference that was just fabulous. Last year in spring, we offered a counselors conference because they don't really have a formal organization where they can get together. And we heard their voices, and we had close to 300 counselors attended. We plan to offer that again because of that need for community college counselors to be able to get together and have those conversations about where they're going and what they're doing. We have a policy conference in January, and then our lead professional development is on advocacy and policy, which is the end of February, beginning of March, helping faculty and students. They attend and talking about them, how they create the change, how they can advocate for themselves, and how they become that advocacy model that role models for others. We also do one of the only part-time conferences that's held. Every year we do it for part-time faculty, and it'll be on November 7th at Peralta College, I believe. So we really absolutely believe in professional development, and I had the opportunity to be on the task force from the Chancellor's Office on Professional Development, and my local college has always believed in and funded us very well to put on things such as Great Teachers, Instructional Skills Workshop, On Course, because we so firmly believe that the way faculty stay renewed and innovative is by providing those professional development activities. The other thing we have available at our website that anybody can use is our point and click. On any legislative matter, you can always go there and point and click and send a personal note to the legislature or the committee chair or the governor with little notes about legislation you think is important. So you're welcome to always access that. And then if you're interested more about FAC, I can get a flyer here for you. If you want to join, you absolutely are welcome. We would love to you. And just as like David said, please come visit us. We're going to be having our board meeting on October 2nd here in Sacramento. And we would love to have you come visit our board and come hear what we do and some of the issues we're dealing with. And come attend our conferences. We'd love to have you with us. and it's a privilege to speak to you today. Thank you.
I want to thank my colleagues on the Board of Governors for a very productive 2 days in the Chancellor's office. The only new business is we will next convene on November 16th and 17th at Mount San Antonio College. It's in Los Angeles' San Gabriel Valley. And we look forward to seeing you there. And I've heard from a number of board members they'd like us to pin down the logistical details as quickly as possible so that people can make plans accordingly. So we look forward to seeing everybody in November at Mount San Antonio College. We're adjourned.
Thank-